I had no idea the British press was so bigoted.
This one's wife. That's it. They are done. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. That's it. They're done. So proclaims Dan Wootton in relation to this one's wife and Harry. Let's dive in to find out what Mr. Wootton has to say about them and how he reaches that conclusion, and to see, is there any merit behind it, and how does that impact upon a narcissist? They're done. It's finished. This is the last roll of the dice, but everyone knows it's going to fail. That was the damning verdict from a senior Hollywood studio executive within minutes of the mortifyingly embarrassing announcement that Prince Harry and this one's wife's £100 million Netflix deal, I think it means $100 million, had culminated in the production of 2 low-grade and reductive reality TV series branded utter rubbish. Naturally, making reference to what they've come up with as rubbish is challenge fuel to the narcissist and doesn't go down well. It's an entirely accurate description, of course. Netflix has invested millions in the 2 grifters, and what have they been provided with? Well, a relative hit with Harry and this one's wife, although, as we know, most of the views were generated as grudge views. Pearl went nowhere. The conversion of the book into a film, despite Netflix giving them another hand there, nothing has been produced so far. And they've come up with the monumentally unique perspectives of Harry presenting something to do with polo, which of course is very much a sport for the masses, isn't it? And this one's wife's going to be dealing with cookery and gardening. There aren't many programs about those things already, and those that do exist, of course, are already presented, hosted, written by much more engaging characters with far more talent with regard to cooking and gardening in their little finger than this one's wife has. Are you proud of yourselves, Netflix? Of course, what Netflix thought was, we're getting the royal renegades, we're going to be given the gossip about what's gone down. And it soon became apparent that not only are the 2 of them lazy, they actually don't have that much of interest to tell people, beyond bleating about how hard done to they've been, and from this one's wife's perspective, revising history, which would result in people querying, did that truly happen? Accordingly, Netflix was sold very much a lemon, which is quite amusing, given that this one's wife appears to be handing out lemons by the bowlful at the current time. The narcissist, of course, expects that she'll get plenty for nothing, and she's shown this once again with clearly misrepresenting what was available to Netflix, no doubt overselling what her and the Ginger Whinger would be able to provide, with the consequence that Netflix, thinking more in terms of, yes, we're going to get lots of royal gossip, rather than actually, is there anything of real substance going to come from these 2, and are they actually going to work at it, signed them up to the mega deal, which really has fallen pretty flat. Mr. Wootton's observation is as per the senior Hollywood studio executive that states they're done, it's finished, this is the last roll of the dice, but everyone knows it's going to fail. Mr. Wootton continues by explaining it took 1,319 days from the mega money agreement being announced for the pair to announce, via their failing Archwell production company, 1. A series curated by this one's wife, the Duchess of Sussex, that will celebrate the joys of cooking and gardening, entertaining and friendship. 2. A polo reality series for the Duke shot primarily at the US Open Polo Championship in Wellington, Florida, that will provide viewers with unprecedented access to the world of professional polo. Firstly, curated, and as you all know, valuable viewers, is a word that irritates me. Curated by this one's wife? What the hell does that even mean? How do you curate a TV series? You either create a TV series, develop it, make it, or star in it. You can't curate it. As ever, this one's wife's minions have had to reinvent language in order to satisfy her giant ego but distinct lack of delivery. And of course, that's all representative of her behaviour as a narcissist. We know that she has a strange relationship with language, witness visceral versus guttural. And again, she attempts to suggest that she has curated a TV series, when in actual fact you can't. Mr. Wooten then adds, secondly, is that it? Really? That's it? After tens of millions spent on development, with a phalanx of entertainment brains across the world's biggest streamer and Hollywood's top entertainment agency Endeavour, that's the best you could come up with. Conceited this one's wife, inviting her conceited mates, who are all terrified of her because of her tradition of ghosting anyone who dares pose any sort of challenge, which of course is the nullification of a threat to control by withdrawal, invites them around to her 16-loo mansion to eat rich people's California food. Did they not learn that this one's wife's ultra out-of-touch conversations with her privileged and woke A-list friends was a total disaster on her Spotify flop archetypes? Well, evidently Netflix haven't, have they? And of course, this one's wife will just serve up more of the same because she's completely clueless as a self-absorbed narcissist that has an inability to read the room as a consequence of her lack of emotional empathy and underdeveloped cognitive empathy. Let's be honest, unless this one's wife was inviting Trevor Engelson, Samantha Markle, and Prince William around for a cosy quinoa salad under the heart-shaped palm tree in Monty Shit Show, no one outside the Sussex squad is going to stomach such self-indulgent nonsense for anything other than hate watching. As for harebrained Harry, polo, the most upper-crust, inaccessible sport in the world. That's your big TV idea to change the world? Netflix cameras were there to follow Harry and this one's wife at last weekend's event in Florida, but are unlikely to show the awkward moment when the self-styled Duchess rudely snapped at a woman for standing in the wrong place during a photo call. See parts pass him. Remember, I didn't set the lofty standards of the Netflix deal. The deluded duo and their corporate paymasters very clearly did. When it was announced, Harry and this one's wife opined, in a carefully crafted and boastful press release, grandiosity, our lives, both independent of each other and as a couple, have allowed us to understand the power of the human spirit, of courage, resilience, and the need for connection. Well, word salad. Through our work with diverse communities and their environments, precisely what's that, to shining a light on people and causes around the world, our focus will be on creating content that informs but also gives hope. As new parents, making inspirational family programming is also important to us, as is powerful storytelling through a truthful and relatable lens. Load of fucking word salad there. After Harry's Invictus Games series and a documentary called Live to Lead, using old interviews with woke public figures like Jacinda Ardern, who awkwardly distanced herself from the couple because of her alliance with Prince William, bombed, with both missing the all-important Netflix top 10 in the UK and the US, the only content that has received any traction was their trashy reality show spreading lies and hatred about the royal family and the Commonwealth, the late Queen's life work. Netflix co-chief executive Ted Sarandos has significantly moved the goalposts too. When he announced what the New York Times described as a megawatt deal, he gushed, Harry and this one's wife have inspired millions of people all around the world with their authenticity, optimism, and leadership. We're incredibly proud they have chosen Netflix as their creative home and are excited about telling stories with them that can help build resilience and increase understanding for audiences everywhere. But just last month, the Netflix boss heaped praise on Barack and Michelle Obama, saying he was very happy with that relationship, while being far more circumspect about Harry and this one's wife. Sarandos said, "They're controversial, but that's usually a good thing. You may love them or hate them, but you're watching. And I do think that they are also going to be very strong storytellers, with greater exposure to media in terms of what people want to talk about, what they think about, and they're great at getting attention." Translation, they get some numbers because most people can't stand them. Absolutely. And the problem with that is it will only last for so long, until people grow bored. It's hardly, however, a ringing endorsement of the inspiring changemakers promised in 2020. Where's the resilience? Where's the hope? Where's the content that informs? Even though the Sussexes purchased the film rights to the best-selling novel Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune, it's obvious this outcome wasn't what either party had envisaged. Not only has there been absolutely no inspiring or world-changing content, which of course is as a consequence of the laziness and lack of imagination of these two grifters, there's been no critical acclaim either. 0 Emmy nominations, certainly no Oscars, not even a hint at a Golden Globe. Mr. Wooten has been investigating for some time why Netflix has been prepared to persevere with this nightmare when Spotify were happy to so brutally cut the difficult couple loose. As is so often the case in Hollywood, personal relationships and celebrity culture appear to have been the key difference. This one's wife's new agent, Ari Emanuel at Endeavour in particular, has done his best to get the Netflix deal back on the road, relying on the couple's connection with Sarandos. Another senior executive explained, Ted is their friend. That's the only thing keeping them in business. Even though they are significantly tightening their budgets, Netflix has the money to keep the faith and save face, and Ted can single-handedly make those decisions. Whereas everyone at Spotify hated them both, it's fundamentally still a European company that didn't have time for their costly antics. And trust me, they're not exaggerating. A senior source at Spotify explained, "It is absolutely true to say that Harry and this one's wife were hated within the company. All of our dealings with them were trying and tedious, and the content was terrible. They were lazy and entitled." The distinct lack of ideas from the couple stunned those involved in their creative discussions. Spotify's head of podcast innovation and monetization, Bill Simmons, who had labelled the pair fucking grifters, said previously, "I've got to get drunk one night and tell the story of the Zoom I had with Harry to try and help him with the podcast idea. It's one of my best stories." He added, "You live in fucking Monty Shit Show and you just sell documentaries and podcasts and nobody cares what you have to say about anything unless you talk about the royal family and you just complain about them." When Harry and this one's wife, or their ever-changing team, most Archwell executives last barely a year in post, again, such a turnover of staff is demonstrative of the way that this one's wife is unable to be accountable to those relationships. When they do have an idea, it's usually executed terribly. This one's wife's only scripted development, a TV series about a woke little girl called Pearl, was axed by Netflix before filming ever began. It's now also clear that Harry and this one's wife's much-heralded Archwell is effectively a vanity vehicle and will do none of the heavy lifting producing either of the new series. The Intellectual Property Corporation, part of studio giant Sony Pictures, will take the lead on making this one's wife's cooking borefest somehow palatable, while Boardwalk Pictures is producing the Polo series. Thus, with those two organisations being involved, Archwell have been sidestepped, demonstrating that it's a vehicle that isn't fit for purpose, once again underpinning the talent-free zone that is this one's wife. The failure of the Sussexes' pact is part of a wider narrative in Hollywood about the end of mega-money ego deals, with Will and Jada Pinkett Smith's company Westbrook particularly struggling. Netflix and Archwell tellingly never released the terms of their deal, including the length of any exclusivity window, giving some leeway for a face-saving Act 2 on significantly reduced terms. Disney and Apple were potentially interested in a deal back in 2020, but their executives would only consider individual project pitches from the Sussexes now, thanks to their very public Netflix failure. Given the couple's creative deficit, outright laziness, reductive final products, and slumping popularity on both sides of the Atlantic, the Sussexes' Hollywood dream has turned into a night terror. Another Hollywood executive stressed, Harry and this one's wife are now the opposite of blockbuster. They can be a drag on a brand, and they're simply no longer worth the money and effort. They have been given multiple chances to create a hit on any platform, on any topic, and it just hasn't happened. This one's wife's best bet would be going back to the reboot of Suits. Once again, this one's wife, having surged ahead as a consequence of her marriage to Prince Harry, finds herself going full circle. She's returning to the Tig days with American Riviera Orchard, and it's being suggested that she should just return to her acting and join the reboot of Suits. She is such a classic example of a mid-range narcissist that had tremendous opportunity, but because of her narcissism and the way that she has behaved, which I've documented across so many videos, it has resulted in her returning, in essence, to her roots. And the fact is, that's it. They're done. And it's all as a consequence of his dim-wittedness and laziness and entitlement, and her laziness, her entitlement, and her need to grift, to get something for nothing, driven by her narcissism. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.